Here at the Singleton Local Land Services Demonstration Site, Shane Kable, S&W Territory Manager for Hunter and Northwest, and we're here to talk about a bit about spring and summer lucerne management. Your lucerne fall into several categories. It's a range of categories, and commonly they talk about fall dormancy, so that's the number that you'll have on a variety, and the higher the number, the less dormant the variety is, so the more it'll grow through winter. So your 9 lucernes tend to grow a lot through winter time. Obviously you get a frost and that damages the leaf, but you get a lot more production. Consequently, because you get a lot more production out of the 9 types, they last for a lot less time. So going to the other end, the other common end of the varieties are the 3s, such as Q31, which we have in our range. A lot finer, a lot slower growing, but very active in summertime, very little growth in wintertime, and you can see that in the spring, and that's how they rank them, looking through those varieties compared to, I think there's some L56 in this paddock, which is a mid dormancy. Not as much winter growth, but very good summer growth and very good hay quality because it's that range between the 9s and the 3s. The mower is not the way to be checking insects in your crop, in your lucerne crop. You should be out there with a sweep net. If you haven't got a sweep net, even driving the quad runner through partway through the crop cycle, so through your cutting cycle. The other thing you've got to consider too is that some of the products have quite a long withholding period, so you need to make sure that if you are chasing insects, A, you're going to kill them, and B, that you're actually not going to risk your final product at the other end. So common at this time of the year, there's a lot of leaf rollers in places, I'm told. Once they're in your crop, you can't really treat them because they're hidden inside the leaf. The other thing that's quite noticeable at the moment, aphids and also Heliothis and loopers. So they'll eat leaves off your crops. Again, talk to your local agronomist about those things, and like I said, is get out there with a sweep net. If you haven't got a sweep net, run your quad runner through the paddock and check for insects in your crop. The other thing too is, I guess lucerne is a perennial crop where you're getting several years out of it, but people ask, what's the best variety? Well, you've got to manage it too. You've got to work out what are you using it for. Are you grazing it? Are you cutting it for hay? If you're cutting it for hay, you're removing all that material from the paddock. A good nodulated legume crop, such as lucerne, won't require a lot of nitrogen, but it will require a lot of phosphorus and potassium. And especially if you're cutting hay like this, you're taking a lot of material out. So best thing you should do is, obviously before you start, is do some shallow tests, but also some deep tests, because your lucerne is working a lot further down in the profile, especially in dry land, but also in irrigation. And then what you should be looking at is a balance. So work out what material's coming off the paddock, whether it's live weight or hay, and then try and balance that nutrition. As again, if it's good nodulated crop, you won't need a lot of nitrogen, but you will need your phosphorus and your potassium. So again, if you are concerned, soil test with a tissue test is a good way to go, and then work from there. When you're selecting your lucerne variety, you need to know what you want to do with it, because that'll affect your plant stand that you start out with, but also too which variety you're going to choose because of your different dormancies. So the lower the dormancy, the finer the stem, the more leaf. Except for the 2 that we have in our range, being the ML66 and the ML99, which are double leaf type, so they're different to the standard. So you probably want, if you want an all-round lucerne, you need a 6-7, so that'll grow some good autumn growth, some good spring growth, but also it'll be fine if you want to cut some hay occasionally. Lucerne cutting height, people used to look for flowers, but as you can see, this hasn't got a lot of flower on it. You actually need to be down here checking for buds, so you need to make sure that your secondary buds are coming out, so that you know that they'll come through the crop, and that'll be your next lot of lucerne coming through. So the lucerne flowering height and the number of flowers on it, that was the thing for the Californian market, where they were doing maximum volume that was coming off the paddock, not quality. So what you should be looking for is getting down in the canopy and looking for when those secondary buds are coming through, and cutting, making sure you're not trimming them off, getting a good cutting height, and going and getting your varieties. Doesn't matter which one it is, cutting them when those secondary buds are coming through. That's going to get your best quality out of your paddock and your most effective management of your crop, so it stays in there for years to come. Just a quick comparison between a L56, a 5 lucerne, and a 9 lucerne. It's much easier to make good quality hay out of a 5 because it's a lot finer stem. The leaves are a fair bit closer, where the 9s is a bit more difficult because they do get stalky very quickly because of their rapid growth, and it can end up with a lower stem to leaf ratio, higher stem to leaf ratio, so a lower quality lucerne. Still makes great hay, good protein, but it's not as aesthetically pleasing, and some fussy stock will leave a fair bit of this stalk behind, so you don't get the same utilisation.